All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about something that's absolutely crucial in healthcare, the blueprint for trustworthy nursing research. What really makes it solid? The kind of research that actually saves lives.
So think about this for a second. In a field like nursing, where every single decision can have a huge impact, how do we know what actually works? How do we separate proven facts from things that just sound like a good idea? Well, the answer is a concept called evidence-based practice. And it's not just some fancy jargon, it's a promise to base our actions on one thing and one thing only, a rock-solid foundation of good, rigorous research. So why is this such a big deal? Because it's all about how nursing has grown up, really. It's moved from being a field based on tradition to a true scientific discipline. And you can see the difference so clearly here. On the one hand, you've got the old way, this is how we've always done it. It's based on habit, tradition, maybe even just opinion. But on the other hand, you have evidence-based practice. This is where the magic happens, because it brings together the best research, the practical wisdom of a nurse's experience, and, this is so important, what the patient actually wants. That is the gold standard today.
Okay, so if good research is the foundation, what does the blueprint for that foundation actually look like? Well, I can tell you it's not random. It is a very, very carefully designed plan.
The very first rule of this blueprint is that the whole thing has to be a systematic process. What does that mean? It means there's a specific, logical plan from start to finish. You can't just wander around hoping to find answers. You have to create a clear path that's designed to get you to the truth while keeping bias out of the picture. And that path has clear steps, just like a real blueprint. Each step builds on the one before it. You figure out the problem, you come up with a testable idea, you design the study, and only then do you start collecting and analyzing the data. It's this logical flow that keeps everything on track. Now, any good plan needs precision, right? In research, we call this rigor and control. Rigor just means being incredibly disciplined and accurate. And control? That's all about managing the outside factors, the stuff you're not studying that could sneak in and mess up your results. It's about making sure your findings are legit. So we've got a systematic, rigorous plan. But what's the actual building material for this research? Well, it's not opinion, it's evidence, hard evidence. And this brings us to a really important word, empirical. Good research has to be empirical. That means it's based on real-world evidence. We're talking about things you can see, measure, and observe directly, not things that are based on guesswork, authority, or just someone's personal feelings. And here, you can see exactly what empirical evidence looks like. This isn't a collection of feelings or opinions. It's a table of cold, hard, measurable data from a real study. Age, smoking status, medications. This is the stuff that trustworthy conclusions are made of. This quote just nails it. It's that combo of a systematic plan and an empirical, evidence-based foundation that separates real research from just thinking about stuff. The goal is to create knowledge that someone else can actually check and verify for themselves. And to make sure that evidence is handled correctly, the whole process has to be an objective inquiry. This means the researcher is actively trying to keep their own hopes, beliefs, and biases out of it. The goal isn't to prove what you want to be true. The goal is to find out what is true. So let's keep building. We have the plan, we have the materials, but how do we know the final structure is sound? How do we know we can actually trust the results and use them to help patients? Well, the first pillar of trust is validity. This is a huge one. It asks a pretty simple question. Is your study actually measuring what you think it's measuring? Are the findings a true reflection of reality? If your tools are flawed, your results won't be valid, and they won't be useful. The second pillar is reliability. This is all about consistency. Think of it this way. If another scientist took your exact blueprint and ran the same study all over again, would they get basically the same results? If the answer is yes, then your research is reliable, it's dependable. Which leads us straight to the third pillar, replicability. You see, for research to be truly trustworthy, it can't be a black box. You have to share your methods in enough detail so that other people can repeat your study. That's how science polices itself. It's how we verify findings and build on them. And then we have this really powerful idea called generalizability. Look, most studies can't include everybody. They use a smaller sample. But if that research is done right, the findings from that small group can be applied or generalized to a much, much larger population. And that's how a single study can end up improving care for millions of people. It's pretty amazing.
But a blueprint for research that involves people is missing its most important part if we don't talk about the human element, the ethical foundation. And let me be perfectly clear here. These principles are completely non-negotiable. Good research is ethical research, period. That means you are always protecting the rights and well-being of the people in the study. You get their informed consent, you protect their privacy, and you are guided by principles like doing good and ensuring fairness. There are zero shortcuts here. Okay, and to wrap up our blueprint, we have two final treats. Good research has to be critical, meaning it looks at its own data with a skeptical eye to catch any mistakes. And it has to be original. The whole point is to contribute something new, to push our understanding forward, not just rehash what we already know. So when you put it all together, what's the big takeaway? It's that none of these pieces work alone. Being systematic, empirical, valid, reliable, ethical, they all lock together. They form a system designed to do one thing: create trustworthy knowledge that helps us advance patient care and ultimately save lives. So I'll leave you with a question. The next time you see some big health headline, now that you know the blueprint, what are you going to look for? Will you wonder if it was reliable? Will you ask who the findings can actually be generalized to? Because knowing this blueprint doesn't just help build good research, it helps us all become smarter, more critical thinkers about our own health.